I have chosen the topic of recycled fashion. Recycled fashion is about reusing fabrics, materials, and clothing to restore wearable fashion. I have decided to look at this topic because it's one of my personal interests, which is part of my identity. I have been doing textiles for 6 years at school and would like to further my career in the textiles industry. Looking at Roger's concentric circle, only people in my private circle would know I want a career in fashion. In some of my past projects, I have used recycled products like bottle tops, old maps, stamps, can tops, and etc. But I have an obsession with recycling old recycled products and turning it into fashion. It has turned me into a hoarder and has changed my values on objects that others would see as rubbish, but I nearly think every object has a value. My generation has been socialised differently to the old generations by valuing recycling through the media, society and school. My mum said it's rubbish, you don't need it. My own theory is that the generations are changing and people have completely different values on recycling mixed with fashion. This is because it's a lot more popular culture than it used to be. This links more to John Fisk's theory of ripped jeans because John Fisk's theory is about the mainstream culture and how people valued ripped jeans in the 80s. Afterwards, society solely accepted the idea of the new trends. It's the same with recycled fashion, because more and more people are buying and selling recycled fashion through the use of eBay, which has 4.5 million shoppers visit the eBay fashion category every month. The numbers are increasing every day over online second-hand shopping for more cheaper and affordable fashion. There are also second-hand retro shops and charity shops, but society has many different opinions of the idea of recycled fashion. Society has many different paradigms on clothing choices, and the idea of recycled fashion used to signify being poor and for the deprived. Now society has rebelled towards recycled clothing as resourceful, money-saving, and good for the environment. It can also be argued that high-end retro shops like vintage can be more expensive than the designer brands. So is recycled fashion cheaper or becoming more expensive? This was like Fisk's theory of the society rebelling and trying to change society's fashion with the idea of ripped jeans. All different religion, racial, age groups of society have different views and values of clothing, but I personally agree with this new fashion outburst. There will always be different opinions because people will always have different values on different types of clothing, and this is what makes your individual identity. The reason why we have different values on clothing is because we care too much what others see and think of us. Goffman's theory, life is a stage, is all about performing a role and how we acting on stage and wearing a costume and pretending it'll be something you're not by the way we act, talk and dress and even walk. Our mirror self means we can choose to see ourselves from how others see us, which affects what we wear to impress others. For example, people can make connotations and deconnotations of us by what we wear, and it sometimes can lead to an aberrant decoding, and people can judge you by not getting the correct message. Others may lead to aberrant coding because they are brought up with a different identity compared to others, and it changes their opinions and values by the way they dress to the way they receive other people's fashion. This is one of my previous projects that I have made, which is created with recycled denim, can tops, bottle tops, paper and stamps, but I did buy lace and cotton fabric to reform the recycling into fashionable clothing. This is my fashion statement, which I want to decode. Why does recycled products only be used for one thing and then to be thrown away? I want to change generation views, so this style and environmental fashion to be a part of the mainstream culture of our identity. This is a part of my identity because I have such a passion for creating something that hasn't been made before, and wanting to change popular culture and also the price tags of these ridiculous fashion designers brands. This is fashionable and it has been recycled, which is the new fashion statement, but not everyone has a good connotation of this style from people's values, which is a style of clothing item which can be and is the price tag. Overall, fashion will always rebel against the mainstream culture clothing, as people desire to stand out, being different and to express ourselves in different ways. There will always be a designer throughout time challenging different styles and fashion. Hopefully the idea of recycled fashion will become more fashionable and popular culture towards the future to help our environment, which we develop our identity and our value to society and the fashion.